around average for the time of year.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Andrew Doyle. In a moment, it'll be time for Headliners, where I'll be taking you through tomorrow's newspapers with the help of two wonderful comedians. But first, it's the news headlines with Polly.
Andrew, thank you. Good evening to you. The top stories on GB News tonight. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has welcomed the EU's move to grant his country candidacy status, calling it a victory. EU leaders have accepted Ukraine and Moldova as membership candidates of the European Union, whilst Georgia was told it would also be accepted once it had fulfilled more conditions. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says she's convinced the two countries will move as swiftly as possible to implement necessary reforms.
I'm deeply convinced that our decision that we have taken today strengthens us all. It strengthens Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia in the face of Russian aggression. And it strengthens the European Union because it shows once again to the world that the European Union is united and strong in the face of external threats.
Meanwhile, the United States has announced it's going to provide an additional £370 million in security assistance to Ukraine, including more long-range rocket systems. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Washington has provided almost £5 billion to the country. Moscow's forces, though, are advancing in the east of Ukraine in a bid to capture the industrial heartland known as the Donbass. Here in the UK, Downing Street says British Airways should be drawing up contingency plans to minimise strike disruption at airports this summer. BA says it's extremely disappointed that workers at London's Heathrow, including check-in staff, have voted in favour of industrial action in a dispute over pay. The GMB and Unite unions both say strikes will likely be during the peak summer holiday period. And rail unions are planning to ballot staff next week for further strike action this summer. Tens of thousands of RMT members walked out today for the second time this week in disputes over pay and working conditions. The union's also planning another strike on Saturday, demanding a pay rise in line with inflation. But Network Rail says in order to fund it, working practices would need to be modernised. In the United States, the mayor of New York says the Supreme Court ruling today against limits on carrying concealed handguns in public will make everyone less safe. New York and 8 other states require individuals to have a licence and proper cause, even if they pass criminal background checks. The Conservative majority court, however, ruled the strict regulations are an unconstitutional violation of the Second Amendment right to bear arms. President Joe Biden says he's deeply disappointed.
I was just talking to the governor of New York about this. I am disappointed in the Supreme Court gun decision. I think it's a bad decision. I think it's not reasoned accurately, but I'm disappointed.
Joe Biden. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, a comedic romp through tomorrow's newspapers with me, Andrew Doyle, and joining me tonight are two people who actually live in the GB News studio full-time at this point. It's Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. How are you both? You've been filming Ministry of Defence tonight.
We have indeed.
Panel show.
That's right, yeah, it was a good show, so be sure and tune in on Saturday, 8 p.m. and watch it.
Yep, good plug, straight from the off.
Yeah.
Were you happy with it, Josh?
Smooth.
I was very good. It was very good. I'm just checking out my beard. I dyed my beard today.
Oh, it looks nice.
Thank you. And you've had a haircut, you're wearing a tie. Yeah.
We're all competing to see who can be the most
got a jacket on,
glamorous.
wearing a shirt.
Is that to look younger? Do you dye your beard to look younger?
Yes.
Right.
I would have thought that the grey would be more distinguished.
But
and we would take you more seriously.
Well, yes, you would think that, but I have an audition tomorrow playing a younger person in their 60s. So,
well, good luck with that one. So let's crack on by going through tomorrow's front pages, and we begin with the Daily Mail. And the Daily Mail leads with Boris Rwanda rebuke to Prince Charles. Boris has urged Prince Charles to keep an open mind regarding his Rwanda asylum plan after the Prince called it appalling. Telegraph next, they lead with drive for green fuel to be relaxed. That's the PM's push to cut land used for biofuel, which could affect net zero petrol pledge, say experts. On to the Independent now. Crazy to quit over by-election, says PM. That's Boris getting his excuses in early. He's making it clear that if the Tories lose the 2 seats in the by-election, he will not be going anywhere. And also an article there on mass disruption feared in summer airport strike. On to The Guardian now. And they lead with airport staff vote to strike as threat of disruption widens. We're going to be covering that in a little while. On to the Financial Times. Germany nearer gas rationing as Moscow weaponises exports. That's also a story that we're going to be covering tonight. On to the Times, and they lead with Charles should keep an open mind on Rwanda, says PM. And also an image there of the first Glastonbury Festival since 2019. Of course, that's been cancelled over the last couple of years because of COVID, but it's up and running. Personally, I can't think of anything worse. But I hope everyone enjoys themselves. On to the Daily Express. Judge slams his own court over secret Rwanda ruling. So this is one of the European Court of Human Rights judges has criticised the lack of transparency at the court in regard to the decision over Rwanda flights. On to the Star, and bucking the trend as ever, they go with Alexa, bring Granny back from the dead. And this is to do with this plan that Alexa is going to be able to mimic the voices of lost loved ones if you so desire. I'm not sure why anyone would want to do that, but we'll be discussing that one later as well. And those are your front covers. And we're going to crack straight on with Friday's Sun. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to think that strikes are a bit of a social contagion. What do you think, Leo?
They are. Yeah, we're looking at more mayhem for holidaymakers.
Yay!
Yeah, after all the baggage handlers and everybody else went on strike, and even getting to the airport, the railways are on strike. Now British Airways staff have voted to go on strike as well. So this is at Heathrow. BA check-in and ground staff who belong to the GMB and Unite unions will walk out and row over pay, and 95% of those polled were in favour of taking action. So this is hugely popular amongst the staff. Now, obviously, this is in the context of inflation at double-digit rates. So, people want their salaries to catch up. And also, I think lockdown gave people a taste of what it was like to to sit down and not do any work. And now
you
people
think it's
miss
sheer
it.
laziness?
Possibly, yeah.
Well, I mean, look, but it's I mean, teachers are striking, so the transportation is striking, the flights are striking, but you can't sue anyone because the lawyers are striking as well. So pretty much everyone's. But why don't we just walk out now? Why don't we just do that, Josh?
Exactly. Well, I mean, that was it. I was thinking if you're trying to go on holiday this summer, you're going to struggle to get to the airport because the trains are down. Then you're going to get there, the flight's going to be cancelled. Then you're going to get in a fight, lose your temper.
Yeah.
But then you're going to go to jail and no one's going to be able to get you out of jail because the barristers are on strike.
And the police will probably be on strike next.
Well, that's it. And then it's going to be, you'll finally get out at the end of the summer holidays and then the teachers will go on strike and then it starts all over again.
So I mean, look, but let's just give the other side to this because these workers, they had a 10% cut in their pay during the pandemic. And of course that makes sense because the airlines were losing a fortune because no one was going on holiday because everything was grounded. So they just want that back. And I think that's fair enough. I think if you had a 10% cut, it's quite fair to say,
fair enough. And with inflation, that really is 20%. If they lost the 10% then and they've got another 10% now.
Exactly.
So, no, I totally agree. They should absolutely get it back. And you know what? It's interesting. My thoughts on the whole striking thing have fluctuated because of the RMT. Seeing it, I don't agree with all of the stuff, but there is something to be said. There are, when you look at the trade, people have made millions or hundreds of millions, or companies have made hundreds, and you start looking at that and you're like, wait a minute, there's something dodgy here.
Well, yeah, but I mean, IAG, so British Airways owner wasn't making hundreds of millions or billions during lockdown. They lost so much money. They had to have a rights issue. There was a lot of financial catastrophe for these companies. So, I don't think we can say, they've got so much wealth and they're just not sharing it out. They are returning to profitability now, but it's been a tough couple of years.
But would you accept that the people at the top of the tree, so the managers, they're still earning quite a lot of money, aren't they?
They always feather their nest. And that is the argument that says, strike action is acceptable in these cases. And also, we've got record low unemployment. So, you can't replace people as easily.
I think it's a good idea, personally, with BA. And I'm not just saying that because I booked with Wizz Air.
Well, OK, I mean, the strength of feeling here is quite clear because the quotation here in the article, the members are saying that they had 10% stolen from them last year and they'd like it back. They're really angry and I get that. Friday's Express next. They're leading with this story on the front cover. A secret European court, Josh. We know about this, don't we? Yeah. We reported on this the other day, but this is a new development in the
Well, what's the most scary part of this story in the Express is how the Express has basically just been kind of hounding all these judges who work for the European Court.
I think it's called journalism.
Well, you say that, but they're literally saying the Daily Express confronted scores of judges, and so they finally found one who's sort of gone, oh yeah, that is pretty bad.
Well, hang on a minute, right? So the whole point of this system is that it's meant to be transparent, OK? And if a judge makes a ruling that overturns everything, it's gone through all the processes in the UK, it's gone through our courts, it's gone through our parliament, and some guy in Strasbourg says, no, you can't do that. That needs to be transparent because these people, we can't vote that person out.
Yeah, we can't have some secret, unaccountable foreign court holding power over us.
Let's just say for the first time, I agree with you, but at the same time, this has got nothing to do with Brexit. Like, we're leaving Brexit or not.
I didn't mention Brexit.
No, I'm just saying.
Why are you bringing up Brexit?
Because
has it something to do with Brexit? Get over it, Josh. You lost.
Fine.
Stop crying.
I'm just saying, this isn't.
OK, well, look, the European Court of Human Rights is not part of the EU, OK? It's not the European Court of Justice. It's a separate thing.
It's just that in this article, people were saying, Conservative MPs were saying, that we didn't leave the EU for this. It's like, well, you're sort of conflating the two here.
Sure, but the principle is actually quite important insofar as the main reason why people have voted to leave the EU is because of unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats determining laws for the country.
Yeah.
Right?
But there hasn't been a vote to leave this.
And the European Court of Human Rights is beholden to the EU. It's ridiculous to assume that the EU has no influence over a court in Strasbourg.
This was something that was started by Churchill. I think it's no longer. But
why didn't he put it in Westminster then?
But Josh, can I just ask you, though, are you not slightly concerned at the idea of all of our judiciary, our government, our executive, that we've gone through all these processes and then this figure in Strasbourg, who has nothing to do with the country, is able to overrule that? Does that not concern you at all?
Not enough to read more about it.
Fair enough. I wouldn't want to give you extra homework, Josh. Terrible. Let's move on to Friday's Daily Mail next. And the words Germany and rationing don't summon up good vibes for me, Leo.
Yeah. I was going to say a bit of a cheerier story now. So, some bad news in Europe. So, Germany says gas is now a scarce commodity due to the conflict in Ukraine and has raised the alert level to alarm under its emergency plan due to dwindling supplies from Russia. So this emergency phase could lead to rationing of gas. And Germany also said that Russia was using gas as a weapon against Germany in retaliation for the West's support for Ukraine. But Germany's support for Ukraine has been relatively muted compared to the UK's support. And also Germany, for all that they say that Russia's rationing the amount of gas they send, Germany's still sending like billions of euros, billions of rubles, it'll be in fact, to Russia. That's paying for Russia's war.
I don't think it's because they're trying to pay for it, aren't they? Trying to pay it in dollars or something?
I think, Russia introduced a rule that you had to pay for it in rubles. I don't know if it works out. But anyway, they're getting money.
Right.
And they're,
But, is this strategic? Because this is being interpreted in Germany as being part of Putin's strategy to create insecurity, to create division.
Yeah.
And this major energy giant, Gazprom, which is a Russian energy giant, has actually reduced the amount of gas going through the Nord Stream pipeline by 60%. But they are saying it's due to repairs.
Coincidence, mate.
Coincidence. Could it not be? Could it not just be it seems like a good time to do the repairs.
Well, the plan in Germany and in the whole of Europe is to refill our stores of gas during the summer when we're not using so much gas.
Guess who doesn't have any storage? Because the Tories sold it off.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we could have avoided this as soon as Putin invaded Crimea. We should have been like, whoa, this guy might not be so nice. This was in 2014. This is 8 years ago. And we could be, even now, we could be developing our Campbell oil field in the North Sea. We could be developing our fracking. Just this week, Gove kiboshed a fracking site. And he's like, why are you doing it now? We can worry about the environment next week.
Let's move. Well, I mean, we can't just postpone worrying about the environment.
Yes, we can.
It's the only planet we've got.
When we're facing nuclear annihilation and our bodies are piling up in Ukraine, I think this is the time to say, OK, Greta, you can take a back seat for a moment.
OK, well, let's put that to Josh. I mean, should it be the case that should ring alarm bells that we should start investing in our own energy and not be dependent on foreign?
Of course, and one of them would be nuclear. And they need to get the ball rolling now because this stuff obviously takes a lot of time, as Germany is finding.
But then a lot of environmental campaigners historically have been quite against the nuclear option. Yeah, I know that they're changing their minds on this.
Well, they are, because actually, as it turns out, it's one of the cleaner forms of energy.
Yeah, until it goes bang. And
then
there's a
technology.
It's definitely not clean.
No, but hopefully technology's changed. It's developed. I don't know. But by the way, I love the headline. I couldn't stop reading. Germany says, in my head I read it, Germany says, gas is scarce! And raises threat level to alarm! Did you read it like that in your head?
No.
It's just the way they wrote it.
I think that's great. We're just appealing to our xenophobes.
When I saw them describing gas being used as a weapon, I did think of them using a duvet cover. And
I just don't want to get tweets from GBNews going, oh, he's bashing Boris again or whatever. I thought I'd throw them a bone.
Yeah. Isn't it considered quite un-PC to do accents now when you're mocking?
Yes, it is!
But the thing is, Josh, you do it so well. We've got to give you that.
Oh, you're going to nail this audition.
German teacher tomorrow.
Friday's independent now, and it looks like Nike is hot-footing it out of Russia.
Yeah, so not so fast, old Nike. I think they're going to replace their swoosh with more like a... yes.
Is it pronounced Nike or Nike? What
Nike.
It is Nike.
Yeah. That's what we say in the streets. And, it's they're out. But actually, they sort of announced it 3 months ago, but it's taken that time. They've sort of been quite generous in keeping their partners in work.
But they were worried about unemployment, weren't they, effectively?
Yeah, exactly, which is nice. Well, really, they should just let the Russian government... They're getting enough money from Germany, so let them deal with it.
Exactly. I mean, I thought the whole point of companies pulling out, I mean, all right, it might cause social upheaval, but that's the whole point. The more you can sort of exert power and cause social upheaval in Russia, the better, I'd have thought.
And would you think that withdrawing McDonald's and Starbucks will achieve that? I suppose you can't get a Big Mac late at night on Saturday.
It's going to destroy Russian society, not being able to get access to pornography, fast food and Netflix.
Yeah. They're going to be in the best shape of their lives.
Let's move on now to Friday's Telegraph. They're reporting on the difficulties on locating those vaccinated for polio. You know what? They should invent some kind of app that can track and trace the unvaccinated. What do you think?
Strange that, yes.
Yeah. Well, they need one for the vaccinated as well, apparently, because health officials have urged the public to ensure that their polio vaccines are up to date because there's been an outbreak of the virus. There's been community transmission because they detected it in UK sewage. But people are struggling to confirm if they or their children have had the vaccine. So they've been contacting GPs. They've been passed, from pillar to post through different authorities. And no authority can confirm if they've had the vaccine or not.
Clarify this then, because I mean, polio is the one that we all have as a kid, like with the sugar cubes.
Sugar cube, yeah.
And then you have a booster as a teenager, and what they're saying is that the records of the booster cannot be found.
I don't think it's just the booster. I think it's the earlier stuff as well.
Really?
Like, because you have to get access to your app, you have to get it from the permission from the GP. So obviously everybody's swamped already, and they're trying to get hold of their GP to get this permission to access this information, and they can't do it. But this article might have saved my son's life because he's 13 and he told me the other day that he'd missed an injection at school because I'd forgotten to read the email.
So he's the parent in the house here.
Yeah,
isn't he?
so now, because of this article, I was like, oh, that's probably what that was. So I better get it.
You've got 5 kids, so I can understand, missing a...
No, but I would say read the letters, Josh. They come home for a reason.
I need to employ someone else just to read all these emails that I get.
With 5 kids, I don't know how you do that. You need a secretary. Anyway, that's it for part 1. Coming up, we have German football goes through the looking glass. Vaping takes a hit across the pond, while the Supreme Courts pull the trigger on concealed carry. See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, and my beautiful guests, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse.
Sure.
Beautiful may be a bit much, to be honest. Yeah,
I'll take it.
I'll
take
revise
it.
that next
Thank you.
time.
Classically handsome.
Let's crack on. Friday's Times and a subject I'm very passionate about now. German football. Josh, you share my passion for German football.
Out of all the football, it's my favourite kind of football.
It's the best one.
The German is like, it turns out it's got the biggest league in the world. I didn't know that.
Has it?
But let's get into this here. Transgender footballers in Germany can choose men or the men's or women's team, which is, isn't that nice for them or they or whoever it is? And this is kind of a ridiculous thing. Now, rugby, of course, has just cancelled it, as has swimming, in terms of cancelling trans women competing at elite levels of the sport. Rugby has implications in terms of danger, but I would argue that football can be a pretty rough sport as well. So I sense we're going to get... For me, I actually don't mind these things happening because it outrages people, and when people see the physical evidence so apparent, that to argue that trans women are women, no, trans women are trans women, and that's totally great. But when you see a photo of Leah Thomas towering over the other swimmers, and in this case, the photo that I cannot wait to see is when they do a women's football penalty shootout, and you've got all the women standing in front of the goal like this, and one trans woman going like that.
Trust you to think of that image. I mean, this is an important point, though, isn't it? Because the German Football Federation is effectively saying that this is to do with self-identification.
Right.
And it includes non-binary. Now, non-binary, of course, is a form of self-identification. It's not rooted in biological reality. So you can be a male and you could call yourself non-binary, and all of a sudden you can say, and I choose to be in the female football team. So there's a reason, isn't there, why we classify sport according to biological sex?
Yeah, because, I mean, your biology conveys, if you're a male, you get certain advantages.
Right.
You're bigger and stronger and all the rest.
I mean, this is
paid more.
Yeah. Better at it.
So does that mean you can identify into the better paid bracket? I guess there's that.
Well, yeah, but how many people are going to, realistically, you're going to get trans men who are competing as women in women's sport, and you're going to get trans women competing. How many of them are actually going to go, wait a minute, let's make it harder on ourselves? There is one advantage here to the whole thing, is that I think personally this might be a way to just cancel women's football at all. Like, why have categories? And then we can stop pretending that women's football is as interesting or as good as men's football.
Well, there's another advantage as well, and that women's football will become interesting. Because
it'll have men in it.
It'll have men in it, and also it'll have women on testosterone.
Right.
So
It feels like we really should have a woman here to participate in this conversation. But then what about this?
One of us can identify.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
no,
so this is interesting, though. The people responsible for making this decision, the Federation, they've issued this quotation here, and I presume it was in German originally. But they've said all people have different physical
Let me read it for you. All people have different physical strengths.
OK, and let me do it in an inoffensive way. All people have different physical strengths and abilities that only lead to success together in a team, regardless of gender. Well, yeah, that's right, that every individual person has different physical characteristics. So I would like to ask this person and this federation, why do we have categories at all? Why bother? Why don't we just get rid of all sex categories in sport and let's see how that works out?
As well. Let's have no children's.
Let's have heavyweights competing in a flyweight boxing competition.
And why select people for the Olympics based on how good they are? If they've got some sort of inbuilt prowess based on their biology and how much they train, surely that's unfair.
I've always felt that I'm excluded from sport for being really, really unfit. I think that's a kind of unfit shaming.
It's discriminatory.
It's massively discriminatory.
You can be a German women's football player.
That's what I'm going to do. That's my career goals resolved. So on to Friday's Guardian now, and 2 words. Gay stamps. I'm assuming they're lickable, Liam?
They are lickable, yeah. You can lick them and stick them on an envelope. So 50 years after a big march in Hyde Park, it was on 1st July 1972, a crowd of people gathered in London's Trafalgar Square.
Went the first Pride March, right? The first...
yeah, it wasn't the first one. There'd been similar protests in 1971, but it was the first one. Oh, yeah, so it was the first one.
It was the first one labelled as
badged,
Pride.
Gay Pride, yeah. So they chanted, gay is fun, gay is proud, gay is beautiful. And 50 years on, Royal Mail is commemorating the event with a set of 8 illustrated stamps. I think we've got pictures.
Have we got pictures of the stamps? Let's have a look. No?
No.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
That's tasteful, isn't it?
That's not stereotypical.
I mean, that's full on Tom of Finland there in the centre. You probably won't know that's a gay reference.
Right.
And some butch individuals on a motorbike. I mean, it really is playing with the stereotypes quite astonishingly there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. Is it offensive?
Well, you tell me.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, probably is on. There's another one.
There's another one.
Look, artistically, they're not great, are they? I mean, they are...
They're quite fun. They've got all the colours in them.
It's quite nice to see the rainbow as it was.
Yeah.
The old school rainbow.
And this was Pride when, you could really support it, because there was horrific homophobia and transphobia in the UK. Not that I was around 50 years ago, but, people struggled. There was a genuine, legitimate struggle. And also it was for equality, whereas now it feels the push for the Q in LGBTQIA+++ has taken over and is...
So this is the point, isn't it? So when the original... I'm all for this, like commemorating what was an important historical... I mean, the people who gathered, the handful of people who gathered at the first Pride, I mean, they had cojones, didn't they? I mean, they had guts.
Yeah.
Because that was scary. That was at a time when it was illegal and you would easily be attacked. But like the last time we had a Pride event, there were 1 million people in London. It's mostly straight. People bring their families. These aren't oppressed.
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Hasn't it kind of its utility is past, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to celebrate it, but as you said, I think it's been taken over by the TQ+, and so you get
straight. In other words,
yeah, straight. But more than straight. I'm sorry. There's a bit of kink going on at these supposedly sort of family events where you got the photo that sticks in my mind is people dressed as dogs with like
leather
dog gimp masks and a little kid patting them. And you're like, mate, I don't know about that.
Yeah, but that's not the fault of the people marching. That's the fault of the people bringing kids. I mean, it's actually an imposition on the marchers to bring kids and make the people marching feel uncomfortable.
But it has become a family thing now because it's not about activism anymore because we have complete equal rights. So there's no reason to march now. If it's just celebratory and if we're saying, let's come out and celebrate the fact that people are different, Well, again, I don't see the point really, because we all know that as well. And you're right, you do tend to get these sort of hyper-sexualised elements to it, which don't do any favours for the gay community.
Yeah, but then we know Morris dancing is okay and exists, but we still Morris dance.
Right.
It's, it doesn't have to be a struggle. It can just be a fun, celebratory thing.
For me, I just can't stand the crowds, though. And the mess they leave. Like, gays are meant to be tidy. The next day, London, it's trashed. Terrible. Anyway, Friday's Times next, and a tragically beautiful case. Josh, what's this about?
Yeah, this is pretty grim. So a widower has won the right to have a child with a surrogate. So this is...
Is that grim or is that quite positive? That's quite...
I don't know. I think it's a pretty sad story. This guy, Ted Jennings, his wife died.
Yes, that's the sad bit.
That bit's the grim... OK,
yeah,
that's the grim bit. And she died pregnant. That's super double grim.
Yes.
But they'd been trying for, human fertilisation, embryology and all that. And so they had a spare fertilised embryo that was in storage, that was frozen, and he went to court because she never wrote permission for it to be used because it was a sudden death. But with the blessing also of her family, who thinks that's what she wanted, the judges also said. So look, yes, there's a happy-ish outing, but...
So they will have a child now, irrespective of the terrible news that she died.
Yeah.
It's the possibility of them having a child still exists. So that is...
I guess so. It seems like we went through a pretty traumatic bit to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it is obviously traumatic. I think it's great that, her life can continue in a way with this child, assuming it all works out successfully. And it's interesting that, without... Because I'd have thought the fact that she was trying for a child and had cycles of IVF gave implied consent that she wanted to have a child. But the judge still needs that written consent.
I suppose you do have to be very careful about these things. And, consent is key, isn't it? So, but it seems like it's gone the right way, right? Would we agree?
It's like Jurassic Park, but for women.
Not quite, because I don't think anyone's ever going to get eaten as a result of this policy.
Yeah. We'll see how the next 20 years. I can see cannibalism.
Semen, mate.
Cannibalism is going to be on the horizon.
Oh, please.
Gas rationing.
No, come on.
Just
I've had enough with monkeypox. I don't want cannibalism creeping in. Anyway, so Telegraph now, and the US Supreme Court has made a pretty impactful decision. Leo, what's all this about?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court in America has ruled that Americans have the right to carry concealed guns in public. And this is, across the whole of America. So the ruling is the biggest expansion of gun rights in over a decade and represents a major setback to President Biden's attempts to restrict access to guns. Joe Biden has lambasted it as unconstitutional.
So can you clarify this? Each state has their own law on gun possession, right? And so, for instance, in Texas, you can carry a firearm, a concealed firearm, right?
Yeah, so some you can already carry a concealed firearm, some have open carry laws. New York, you couldn't.
But now they're saying you can.
And the Supreme Court has said across the whole country, everybody has to be able to.
And the crazy thing in New York, the law that said that you couldn't carry firearms out, but it's been there since 1913. So it's worked for over 100 years.
Well, see, they're basic. So the Democrat mayor of New York, Eric Adams, he's described this. He said it's going to become like the Wild West at New York. Now, I've been in New York. There's a lot of tension in New York. There's a lot of anger, particularly if you're driving down the street and the way that it's so cramped and people are shouting, I'm walking here and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, so this should help
Who's doing the bad accents now? How offensive is that?
That was a pretty bad accent.
This will help diffuse it because you won't shout at someone if you think they might have a gun.
Alternatively, it might mean that there will be more crimes of passion, Leo. And, if someone annoys you in that moment of road rage and you've got a gun, aren't you going to pull it out?
No way, because my dad's a gunsmith. I grew up around guns. I'm gun trained, and you just don't shoot people with them.
No, of course you don't shoot people.
You go to jail.
It is bad. I agree with that.
Yeah, and you beat them to death with a tyre wrench.
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
OK, that's more the kind of Scottish way.
This is, constitutionally, this is a bit of a worry because this is the second big decision in just a few months. There's the abortion decision that the Supreme Court... So the Supreme Court is very skewed to the right now, thanks to Donald Trump's appointment.
6-3.
So, but you saying that's a bad thing?
But it means they're out of step with the public opinion. So greater public opinion is for, reasonable access to abortions and also gun control.
Sensible gun control.
Sensible gun control.
Josh, is this a point that what we effectively now have, thanks to Donald Trump's appointments, is an activist Supreme Court? Is
Absolutely,
that what we've got?
and this was the strategy all along. He put in 3 people. The 3 people that he put in when he was president all voted for repealing this gun law.
Then when Joe Biden came to power, we had all this talk among Democrats of flooding the court.
Yeah, but they haven't done it.
With judges. So, it feels like both sides are pretty happy to play the system.
You've got to wait for one to step down or die.
Well, they were talking about adding it.
They could say we'll have an extra 30 judges on the Supreme Court because it's not stipulated in the Constitution that there is a maximum number, right?
They haven't done it. The point is the Republicans know how to play the game better, and they play dirtier, and they have no...
Smarter.
Yeah, well, smarter for their... And as it turns out...
Yeah, but has there ever been an administration that hasn't appointed its own politically affiliated judges?
No, I know, but I think the point is that there have been things that have been held up a lot longer with the Democrat and Obama. And a lot of this is because, what's her name, the female judge...
Ruth Bader
Ginsburg really should have stepped down during the last episode.
But she wanted that glory.
Yeah, she wanted
But don't worry, Trump's going to be back in a couple of years. He'll sort it out.
Goodness me. OK, on to Friday's Metro. And is vaping just smoking for kids? Josh, is that what it is?
Well, they say, it seems to be that, first of all, in the US now, there's the US Food and Drugs Administration have actually banned these dual e-cigarettes. I think partly what differentiates dual e-cigarettes is that they have a lot of sort of children-like flavours, fruits and things like that. And they're saying...
So like Alka-Pops used to.
Yeah, kind of. So they're saying it's encouraging children to be... And they're actually saying kids have died. How old are the kids who are like 3 or something?
Well, I think it's quite rare.
Can you clarify this for me? Because they're saying that the vaping has caused irreparable damage to lungs in certain cases, and there have been deaths. I thought vaping was just water vapour.
Well, it's not just water vapour because it's got nicotine and other chemicals in there. But, I mean, overall, it's considered to be much, much safer than smoking, burning tobacco and chemicals. But it does still do some damage. And there's a condition called, I think it's called popcorn lung, that it can cause, and that can be fatal.
Well, certainly the people I know who gave up smoking and they're vaping instead now say they ingest a lot more tobacco than they ever did because they just keep doing it.
Yeah.
But then, we had flavoured cigarettes as well. That's not a new thing,
We had those candy ones.
The candy ones. We had those when we were kids.
Love those.
Talk about encouraging you to... It's like having little hypodermic needles in sort of licorice form.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? It's interesting. This feels like a pretty clear-cut case of a company that hasn't met the standards, however.
Yeah, the standards... Yeah, exactly. It says here the FDA is tasked with ensuring that tobacco products sold in this country meet the standards set by law, i.e. they have to be able to kill you.
I have bad news, I'm afraid. Part 2 is over. Have no fear, however, because Part 3 is a cracker. We've got dead white guys, dead digital avatars, and loads of dead frogs. It's not as nightmarish as it sounds, I promise you. See you in 3 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, and I'm joined tonight by Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Let's get straight into it. A depressingly familiar article now from Friday's Mail, Leo.
Yeah, so Education Secretary Nadeem Zahawi has slammed a GCSE exam board for cultural vandalism after it ditched giants of English literature like Wilfred Owen, Philip Larkin and John Keats in favour of a series of black, disabled and LGBT poets. So he said it, not me. I was just thinking it. But yeah, so they've added a lot more. They've added 14 poets of colour and also disabled and LGBTQ voices. But it seems kind of unnecessary to add LGBTQ voices to a list of poets. Surely, you know, the world of literature and poetry has always included, you know, a diverse...
Sure. Well, Wilfred Owen was gay, so I don't know.
But this is what I don't understand. It's got Wilfred Owen and Sigrid Sassoon.
Yeah.
Sigrid Sassoon certainly bisexual. Wilfred Owen's certainly gay. And they're saying that but we need more LGBT. You've got them. But also, what's odd about this, I used to teach GCSE and I used to teach with this board, and there was a huge range of ethnicities and sexuality. It was there already. This feels like pointless posturing.
Well, if you actually look at the numbers, I think it's even more damaging because there's 45 poems that they teach. Now, they've retained 30, so they've replaced 15 and 14, like you say, a poet's got. But that doesn't skew with the numbers of the population in this country of those demographics. Of course, there should be representation.
Yeah.
But that when it becomes a third of all the poetry that's taught, you're like...
Because the problem is that it feels anathema to me when you talk about literature and art and this kind of thing, and all of a sudden you're making decisions on the basis of identity politics, of demographics such as race, gender, sexuality, which have nothing really to do with the artistry, right?
Yeah.
And you're kind of getting your priorities wrong. Sure, if it was a syllabus that was all straight white men, I'd be like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? That's suspicious, because there are obviously people from all demographics who are really important poets. But this wasn't the case here. This just feels like tokenistic.
The people that they're cutting out, Philip Larkin, John Keats, Thomas Hardy, Seamus Heaney. I mean, I've actually heard of these people.
Yeah.
You know, haven't read any of their poems, but I know...
So isn't this a question, when it comes to this idea of decolonising the curriculum, right? It's one thing to say there are some voices who we haven't heard that we should have heard, and that's always going to be the case, and I would be supportive of that. But when you start ditching really important key figures in literary history, that's where I have a problem with it. Because if kids are going to get pass a course in poetry and they don't know who Philip Larkin or Wilfred Owen is, or Thomas Hardy, that's a problem, right?
Who are those people?
I can lend you the books.
Right.
Yeah.
You also got a PhD from Oxford, didn't you, in poetry or something?
I do.
Okay.
So I have a vested interest here. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Medieval poetry?
Renaissance.
Renaissance,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, we can talk about that later, because I don't think that's what the viewers have tuned in for.
No.
Sort of a lecture on poetry. But yeah, I do think this is a problem. Again, it's just the takeover of identity politics in our educational system. I just think is absolutely...
But then it is being called out by the Tory government, and to be fair to the Tories, they are pretty good at some of this stuff.
Yeah. Some of it. OK, following on, this next one from Friday's Telegraph. Similar theme, Josh. We're back on this theme, aren't we?
Yes, so books about heroic white blokes are under threat, claims Ernest Shackleton expert. So this is actually from Joanna Grokowicz. She's a polar historian, someone who specialises in the Antarctica and all of the people racing to Antarctica and all of that. And she is saying that the focus now from sort of non-gender is essentially threatening her line of work anyway.
So she specialises in men, in male, heroic male figures.
Mostly men who went to the North Pole and the South Pole.
Is that right?
Okay,
fine. Well, I'm not a specialist, so I wouldn't...
Physical courage, stoicism.
Yeah.
It's you in a nutshell. That's why we wanted you on tonight. Because you embody those
emotional
ideas.
Restraint, strength, care for the vulnerable, understatement. I can't believe what I'm reading here.
Are these things really under threat? I mean, she's talking about how we're moving towards a gender-neutral society. I don't believe we are, because I think ultimately you do hit that brick wall of reality. You do hit the notion of biological sex differences, and people aren't willing to jettison them just because of a handful of activists.
But then so many of our institutions and corporations are systemically woke, and we've got this through education, and I think we are. And certainly, if we're not moving to a gender-neutral society, then certainly apparently masculinity is seen as toxic. There's even that phrase, toxic masculinity.
What does this mean,
And
toxic masculinity?
So
It means Leo Curse.
but it's ridiculous. It means, so basically it means anybody who's like aggressive or good at fighting, but we need those people. What if Putin invades? Are you going to have some like gender neutral guys go and fight Russian soldiers? Being all like, hey, we're going to get them with an online questionnaire. You know what I mean? No, you need people who can punch people in the face.
So was Captain Oates toxically masculine? Was Shackleton?
That's interesting here, because I thought that this was... He walked out from Scott's tent to certain death. I would say that isn't masculine. I think that's really kind of him.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but that form of kindness is a masculine kind of self-sacrifice. Fits in with the thing you were saying about stoicism.
Women don't self-sacrifice.
No, I'm not saying that at all. Don't you try and make me out to be some kind of misogynist, Josh. This is the other thing. Surely...
Do you think he should have stayed in the tent and eaten all the Maltesers?
No, probably not. But isn't it fair to say that women can also have these qualities? Like, why is that controversial?
Yeah, obviously.
No, you're not having it. You're not having it. OK, Josh has spoken. Right, we must reinstate the sex binary. The next one now from Friday's Sun. Sounds very macabre. This is conjuring voices from beyond the grave. So are Amazon going to move into Ouija boards next? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thin end of quite a grim wedge. So Amazon Alexa might one day be able to speak to you in the voice of deceased friends, family, or loved ones. So the idea is that after listening to someone's voice for less than a minute, Alexa would be able to simulate that voice when speaking to you, when you're conversing with your Alexa. And the goal, said Amazon's senior vice president, Rohit Prasad, is to make the memories last, after so many of us have lost someone we loved during the pandemic. But we're seeing this with AI and with learning, machine learning. So machines computers can learn to speak in a simulation of engaging conversation.
I find this horrible. Because you know what? There's a difference here. So the Amazon are saying this is a great way to preserve the memory of your loved ones, but it isn't. That would be a recording, right? A recording of them, a photograph. But when they're moving and speaking, it's like when you remember they had Bob Monkhouse do those anti-cigarette adverts after he had died.
Right.
Or Carrie Fisher in Star Wars, or Harold Ramis in the new Ghostbusters. And you see them move and speak, but they're not. That's not them. They're dead.
Or Keanu Reeves in any film.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's basically dead inside.
I like this idea, personally, because I like it for me, because I want them to record my voice. I'll live on. My kids will say, oh, play this song. And I'll be like, no, that's rubbish. I can be judged. Wake up now, set the alarm, get out of bed.
Josh, you're not thinking this through. They'll probably make a nicer version of Dad, won't they? They'll keep your voice, but as they wanted you to be, not the tyrant that you actually are.
You don't think they'd actually kill me just to get to this?
Well, let's not rule it out.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, this is weird. Like I said, I think if you preserve someone's voice, like in the embankment tube, where you hear that announcement, "Mind the Gap," and it's really old-fashioned and weird. It's because it's an old actor who died a number of years ago, and they kept his voice because his widow wanted to hear the voice. And
she wants to get paid the big bucks.
I don't think it is that. I think it's more sentimental. But keeping a recording of someone's voice is one thing. Creating a computer that can talk like them is just chilling and wrong.
This raises some ethical issues, because they're obviously they're not going to stop at the voice. They're going to have it so you can converse with it, and then it becomes, people say it's a transference of consciousness, and then it raises the question, what is life? Is the life inside the human spirit, or is the life something that can be transferred?
Amazon, just stop initiating these existential crises. I've had enough of this. So Friday's Telegraph once more, and flirting has changed a lot since my day. Josh?
Well, sure. This is actually, I think this is probably the most disturbing
It's really creepy.
It is super duper creepy. So, sending nude photos is they're saying it's the new flirting for teenagers. It seems to be very much the new norm. 1 in 3 girls felt they were pushed into taking intimate images, even though they felt disgusted and upset by it. 60% of girls under 18 have been asked to provide a picture. But even crazier than that, what was it? A third of girls under 13 and under have been asked to send a nude.
How has this become normalised? Because I understand that when we were at school, obviously we didn't have the technology for this kind of thing, but it would never. I don't think it would have occurred. There's been an attitudinal shift towards sex, hasn't there, generationally speaking? Leo?
Yeah, I think the pornification of society has had a huge impact. So young women in particular are feeling like they're having more sex and they feel comfortable with. They're having sex with older men. They're doing things they're not comfortable with. But there's probably some downsides as well. And there is, 60% of girls under the age of 18 have been asked to provide a nude photo, and 40% are ugly. It's
goodness sake,
come on, mate. But this is also boys as well who.
It's
1 in 5 girls and 1 in 7 boys have actually shared naked images. And I told my son, I'm just like, mate, He's never had a girlfriend.
Do they not understand? Like, this is my worry about this
sticks around
stuff.
forever.
Yeah, it's the same with the way that young people tweet and put things on Facebook. They don't realise that this stuff is there forever. And if you say something... You know, we saw that case in America where that boy had written some racial slurs when he was 14 or something, and people held on to it so they could ruin his university career.
Yeah.
You've got to be so careful about this.
And we're seeing this. There's offence archaeologists who dig back through the years to find stuff they can leverage against someone else, usually with tweets, but
this can ruin teenage life because they could be. They're saying that those images are traded to bait other teenagers. They're leaked to humiliate. This is what drives me mad because it's like get into primary schools at 10, 11, 12, whatever around that age, or early secondary schools, and teach them. Number one, don't litter. Yeah. It's bad. Number two, don't put any personal stuff online it's going to stay there forever. And also, number three, boys to respect girls and their spaces. Yeah. Like, get that generation stuff now.
Don't buy avocados from the market. They're always rotten.
These are the number four.
That's the most important one, clearly. But isn't it the case of just get rid of their phones as well? Why do kids have...
Yeah,
I mean, safety and you want to get hold of them and all that stuff.
OK, fair enough. Let's move on to Friday's Mirror and a story where I genuinely don't understand how this could happen, Leo. This is the story about the conned wife.
Yeah, so there's
I don't understand this story. You're going to have to talk me through this.
This is a woman who married what she thought was a man. It turned out to be another woman. So the 22-year-old woman entered the relationship with someone who went by the name of Anaf Arafif.
Where was this?
This is in Indonesia. I'm not sure what part of in Jambi in Indonesia.
In the clever part.
Where that is, but so they met through online dating, and then they got married quickly. And after the ceremony, the newlyweds moved in with the bride's family, and her parents quickly became suspicious when the husband kept asking for money, despite apparently being a doctor.
So there's the husband
and an entrepreneur.
And that's quite a feminine husband.
And the husband never took his clothes off. Would even bathe with the clothes on.
Okay, look, this is where my credulity is stretched to the limit. As far as how can the wife not have twigged that she never saw her husband naked?
They said that they even saw like breasts, and they said, "Oh, it's a hormonal imbalance." She got.
Is this family just really stupid?
Well, that's part of me thinking that, or could it be that the woman is actually a lesbian and didn't want to tell her parents?
Well, and there's fraud involved because she got thousands of pounds.
So was that the point? This was financially motivated?
Well, I think the point is that we should encourage young people to take naked photos and send them to each other, because that would have solved this.
Not at all, Leo. You know what we should do? Have you read Thomas More's Utopia? There's a passage in that where it's where he imagines the perfect world. That's where we get the word utopia from. And in that world, he imagines that everyone who's going to get married has to see each other naked first. Right. And that's the deal breaker. And he was a saint.
They made a Channel 4 show out of that, didn't they?
I think they did. Well done. Let's move on to Friday's Telegraph next. And a perennial question of our time, is modern art rubbish?
In this case, yes. Yeah. Very much so.
Josh has spoken.
Yes, I have made my judgment. And Britain's tallest ceramic statue costing £80,000. I should say straight away, it does say it in the last line of it, but it was no taxpayers' money was put into this. But it was 3 years in the making. It's called the Earth Goddess. It's in St. Austell. And it's been ridiculed by everyone as a massive...
All right, we've got a photo of this, and I think we do need to see that. I mean, look at that. So this pales... Do you remember that awful one on the 4th plinth where they put the ice cream with a drone on it?
Yeah.
I mean, which they tried to pass off as art, and it's just an eyesore.
Compared to that...
I mean, but look at that.
Much worse.
And this picture doesn't really do justice how bad it is. It looks like something you'd find in somebody's garden. It looks, you wouldn't be able to sell this at a yard sale.
No, look, it's not traditionally Cornish or anything. Am I missing something? Because obviously this is it to do with local tradition or something?
Yeah, they like being ripped off.
Maybe they do. Maybe that's, because those pasties can be quite insubstantial, can't they? I mean, this is a weird... No, I mean, look, when it comes to public art and things that are... shouldn't we aim for the stars? Shouldn't we have... why do we end up with things like that ice cream and the plinth? You know, when in Cellini's autobiography, Cellini, who did the Perseus in the square in Florence.
Yes, of course.
Well, no, but what he writes in his autobiography about how when they unveiled his statue, the Perseus, in the Piazza della Signoria in Florence, the crowds gathered and applauded and pinned sonnets of appreciation. Like, these are just working-class people there. Does that happen here? No, because we've got a bloody ice cream.
I love how you're both asking us, like, you read in that book about the blah, blah, blah. Like, look at us. Did you know what he's talking about?
No.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking. Okay, whether you've read the book or not, I'm talking about the principle that we should have high standards in public art because it has a drip-down effect on culture.
But then you know what? The thing about art is you've got to fail.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to be good until you stick it up there. I mean, look at Headliners. Nobody thought Headliners was going to be this.
And we're rocking it. Absolutely nailing it. Anyway, Friday's Guardian now, and yet another question I often ponder to myself while gazing out my living room window. Should we bring back the wolf? Leo?
Well, they brought them back in Yellowstone National Park in 1995.
Yes.
They released 8 wolves, which are now living in the park. And there's been this myth that the wolves created this sort of landscape of fear and reshaped the ecology, and they're starting to rethink that now. So the idea is that the wolves preyed on elk and deer and things like that didn't have any natural predators. And the number of elk in the northern range of Yellowstone went from 19,000 before the wolves' introduction and stabilised at 6,000.
Wow. So what you're saying is that the introduction of the wolves, it's good for the environment, it's good for the ecology, and it has a knock-on effect also in terms of vegetation.
Bad for elks.
Bad for elks, but there were so many of them.
But it's good. It's good for elks in a way because it means that their gene pool, the weaker and the sort of older ones, get killed off. The wolves are like coronavirus.
So now you end up with the really muscular elks.
Yeah, you get
good elks.
Nice, so you're even right wing about elks.
So now there are people who I've heard people talk about maybe reintroducing wolves into the UK, into Scotland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deal with the junkies.
Isn't there the issue that wolves can eat people? Am I missing something?
Well, that's what it is. So Scotland is going to vote for independence, and then we're going to just chuck a bunch of wolves at them.
I mean, I get that it might be a good idea because apparently we have far too many deer in the UK, and a few wolves would sort it out. But they'd probably also sort out a number of children as well, wouldn't they?
I think that that mainly happens in Hansel and Gretel fairy tales. So wolves don't predate on humans so much. And
people have been attacked by wolves.
People have been attacked by wolves
in London.
I think cougars are more of an issue in Canada and also in wine bars.
Well, I don't trust it. I got cornered by a group of 50-odd wild goats in Capri recently, and that was scary enough.
How did you escape?
Well, we had to wait for them. We had to sit down and wait for these goats to come by because they're apparently very dangerous. Anyway, if you're a fan of frogs and a fan of Germans, this next story will be somewhat uncomfortable for you. Josh, I didn't realise the German appetite for frogs was so strong.
Do the voice.
Do the German voice again.
The Germans, they love the frogs!
We're going to get so many complaints from our Teutonic viewers tonight.
The European Court of Human Rights and accents.
Exactly, you need to be in a criminal court.
I'll do it in French then. So frogs...
Just tell us the story, Josh.
Fine. Frogs have been eaten to extinction around the world because it turns out Germans love frogs. And they love them like practically over double the amount of France. That's interesting, right? This is gonna fascinate people in pubs. This is how you're gonna tomorrow night. You're gonna be out with your mates and you're gonna have a drink and you go, did you know that in Germany they fork out £73 million worth for frogs' eggs, and in France it's only 33
Yes, because you associate frogs' legs as being sort of a staple diet in French cuisine.
Yeah.
But the Germans are at it.
Love it.
But the poor frogs. I mean, also how disgusting. I'm sorry.
And they're wild frogs.
Are they wild frogs?
Well, is that why it's a problem? Because, I mean, if they're being farmed, then there's not a problem.
I think it's
No, because there's just not enough. But there's
not enough frogs.
They're going extinct in Indonesia. India, Bangladesh, which is where they traditionally came from, Indonesia.
Germans need to stop eating the frogs. I'm sorry. We're going to have to move on now. I just want to get this final story, and this is the Metro with a totally true story, Leo.
Yeah, so
totally true.
A woman who married a rag doll has made a baby rag doll that she calls their child.
She claims that she was impregnated by her ragdoll husband, right?
She married a ragdoll in the first place, so I don't think she's of the sanest mind.
Can we see an image of the ragdoll? Have we got an image?
I think we probably can.
Oh, that's the baby.
That's the
baby. Isn't that sweet? The miracle of birth, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is the future the left wants for us. People marrying ragdolls.
Does everybody being mental?
It's your fault, Josh. You were introducing this kind of nonsense.
Absolutely what it is.
Perversity.
It's Adam and Eve, not Ragdoll and Eve.
Doesn't work because it doesn't rhyme. But maybe there's a loving relationship, Maybe if they're happy, who are we to judge?
But she gave birth, 200 people watched it online, and she said afterwards that it was pain-free.
I imagine that it would be pain-free. One of the advantages of giving birth to a ragdoll rather than a baby.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we've got to end now. Thanks very much for joining us for Headliners. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. See you then. Farewell.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.